Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Astrology Plus. This is the podcast that's all about giving you the cosmic forecast with a different astrologer each week to provide a new and unique perspective to the energies we'll be dancing with. I'm your host, Olivia Edwards, and joining me this week is astrologer Rebecca Conran. How's it going, Rebecca?
Hi, Olivia. It's going really well. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to talk to you this week. So before we jump right into the astrology for this week, do you want to give the viewers a brief little background to yourself?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm an evolutionary astrologer, but I also am a life coach and an energy healer. So I kind of do an amalgamation of those tools in each of my sessions, just helping people to connect with their life purpose, to understand karmic patterns in their life, especially around dysfunction and things that they can't seem to shake, and what its purpose is and how to work with it in a rewarding way. But I'm also an artist and a musician, so I sort of meld all of my spiritual kind of presence into my creativity as well. So there's all kinds of, I was like writing a little list today of like the things to talk about. And I was like, well, I've got this oracle deck I've just made, and I've got a record that you could listen to, or, so there's all kinds of things. But yeah, I'm like basically just, living proof that you can live a spiritual life and also be creative and be an artist and be of service and have your life provided for and all of those things. So I try to help other people to tap into that as well. And I've been practicing since 2013. So
It's incredible. And I could not agree with you. I could not agree with you more. One of my favorite things to talk about on the podcast is how you don't have to be an astrologer to know about astrology, to be aware of how it impacts you on the daily, or to just know about and be aware of your own natal chart and how that energy that you're born with and the patterns can play out. So I think astrology is such a great tool. Especially when you are such a creative individual. I think creativity and astrology really do go hand in hand.
Yeah, and especially for relating, I find them really helpful. One of the session types I do with couples is like bring them both into a session and just explain how each of their love language or their communication styles or their action styles may be different, and how to kind of, see, that they don't have to be at loggerheads. They can be complementary if they have an understanding. So I think astrology is really helpful on so many levels, like not just like in purpose driven, but also understanding one another more clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think, again, is exactly what a lot of creativity is about, sort of trying to find an understanding, whether it be to a concept or if it's even to timely events or a collective. I mean, I think astrology is so helpful for that, especially understanding the themes of not just your own life, but of what everyone's sort of experiencing, what's sort of going on in the background of everything. So absolutely, I love that. And this week, I'm going to say it because I say this every single week, we've got a lot going on.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I say on my podcast all the time too. I'm always like, this is a really intense week.
I say it I know, I'm aware, just for everyone that watches this every week, I know I say we've got a lot every week, but it's because every week is its own different version of a lot.
This week really is a lot though.
This week is, yeah.
And I think like, it's been a lot for the last few years, way more than I feel like it was like post 2018 and then 2012 and on. I mean, there was a lot of intensity going.
There was. And it's a good point you bring up. I'll get this out of the way now. This is for the week of April 12th. We're filming this September 16th. But this is, I mean, we're in Aries season, so we already have that intensity. And it does seem like this week especially does feel like it's all about fresh starts and initiating, and we can jump right in if you'd like, but there's a lot to get to.
Yeah, definitely. And like one thing to talk about too that I wanted to mention is that in numerology, 2026 is a 1 year and 2025 was a 9 year. So it's like we've moved from the energy of endings into new beginnings. And because the energy year actually begins with Aries, we carry through a lot of that sort of ending energy through to this new moon in Aries that's happening this week. So this is really like our new year, and it really is an ignition point for this one energy that's come in, which is a lot more about initiation, individuality. It's like if last year was so much about our mind was there, but nothing was catching up to it. It's like we had the ideas and all of that was flowing and everything else just felt delayed, delayed, delayed. Now things are really moving. And this week, especially, there are no retrograde planets. Everything is moving forward. So it's a very powerful moment where we will have to check ourselves, for review, for self-responsibility, for reflection, because it's very much like speak first, think later, and so we've got to the old adage to check yourself before you wreck yourself has never been truer than this week. It's really feeling the heat, and I think one of the things about the 1 year as well is great for actually getting the ball rolling on stuff, but it's a very individually minded year, so that can bring up a lot of selfishness in people, and maybe not personally for each of us, but if we're on a spiritual path, we might be more service oriented. But what we'll see playing out more in the world is a lot of selfish behavior, of me first behavior. So we really have to work hard to bring the collaboration and the community energy into what we're doing for this whole year. So yeah, I mean, technically this is the end of Aries season this week. But because Mars has just recently entered into Aries, Mercury's about to enter into Aries, we're still full on in Aries season. So all of these fresh starts are happening. And we just have to kind of see what happens globally, because it's very possible, it's action, it's spirit in motion. That's the highest octave of the Aries energy. But and rebirth and just ignition, but it's also anger and frustration and being war-minded. And so again, we have to really check in with our own projections and our deeper hurts that might be activated, so that we don't project them onto others or try to blame someone out there for things that are our responsibility. So that's why one of the most important things I think this week is to understand that we have to take responsibility for ourselves and be willing to be reflective about our place in the experiences that we're having.
Absolutely. And I think this is exactly one of the times when, as you mentioned before, that all the planets are moving forward. We don't have any planets retrograde. And because of that, we need to be able to check ourselves, because the energy around us isn't presenting us with things that naturally will have us reflecting. And because it's so much energy that's not only moving forward, but Aries is really just move anywhere, get moving, don't think about where you're going. It really is, I think, exactly like you said, very, very important to make sure that we are sort of checking ourselves.
Absolutely. And because this is a new moon week, it's very important on a personal level to check in with our intentions, and to really focus, what am I choosing? What do I want to be choosing? What are my values? What are my beliefs? And how do I want the ignition in my life to mirror my deeper values? And then how does that work with the collective? It doesn't just meet my individual needs, it also sees me meeting my needs as an act of service to the collective whole as well. So it's a really great time to use meditation and embodiment, and just journaling your intentions this week, of the seeds, what are you planting? This is a really important time to tell the universe what it is that you want to give birth to.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And I think that also, like you said, the new moon, the fact that it is also a new moon week, it really is just wherever you look, it's just fresh start, fresh start, fresh start. So it's almost kind of nice also, because I think a lot of the times people fall into the whole New Year's pattern where they say, yay, new year, new me, new whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you get a month into the new year and you're like, all right, I'm over it. And it's well, if you were over it, now could be another time where you can sort of get that revitalizing, sort of igniting fresh start energy. And actually, you might even be able to implement more of the intentions and positive things you wanted to do in the new year now.
Yeah. And the caveat about this new moon, though, is that it's happening at the last degrees of Aries. So it's happening like in the almost release portion of Aries, where Aries comes into culmination. And because it's also touching on Chiron in Aries as well, it's almost at the same exact degree. And at some point, it's going to touch Chiron in Aries as it becomes the new moon. This is also a point where it is a fresh start based on surrender, based on personal healing, so that fresh start isn't just going to be handed to us. It's like we have to let ourselves be forged in fire. But then there's another side to it where if you're not paying attention and you're not in your conscious choice, you might be fried by the fire. So there's a couple of options here for us, but I think like it's going to be a week where we really need to be tuned into like our own behaviors and purposefully slow ourselves down to be conscious.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting some Targaryen imagery right now, like letting yourself being forged. But for any Game of Thrones people out there, I feel like it's Khaleesi coming out of the fire. That sort of feels like the energy of it feels like a Targaryen week. It does.
Yeah. And not everyone's gonna rise through it, it's tough. It's very tough. And I think especially because Neptune as well, and we're going to go through the day to day, but the Neptune energy as well being in Aries, I would say, and not to be alarmist or anything, but this is not a week where you want to overdo it on substances and stuff like that. This is a week where people who are escaping, like it can lead to really damaging sort of results. So you want to really be conscious about not escaping with substances and stuff like that, not drugs, alcohol, things like that. Like these are moments where we're feeling so much, it's so intense, we're trying to dull it down, and accidents can really happen under this type of intensity. So we want to kind of use real self-care tools, connecting with nature, creating peacefulness and like restfulness in the body. That's really going to be the only medicine that really works for the intensity we might feel.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's a very good reminder as well. Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, let's jump right into the day by day. What are we looking at the beginning of the week?
Monday's like the easiest day, I think, because I say that, and it's like, when the conjunctions are going on, they might peak on certain days this week, but obviously, like they're transits that last days. So, Sunday, April the 12th, we've got the moon in Aquarius, and that's a nice way to kind of detach sometimes from the heaviness of our emotions. It's a good day to reflect on, your own individuality, your own uniqueness, and how you relate to the collective and others, and let your own humanitarian side come out as well. So not too much going on the Sunday, other than like it's a great day for any kind of creative stuff like writing, singing, any of those kinds of things. Anything where you can tap into spirit too, into the universe, like because Aquarius is so intuitive. If you can have a creative practice today, and just help yourself to create that space for downloads to come in, for intuition to fly in. I don't know about you, Olivia, but whenever I dance, that's like the period where epiphanies just come out of nowhere. It's just like I'm not thinking about anything, I'm just dancing to some music, and all of a sudden I'll be like, this is how this is supposed to work in my life.
Sort of just that like free movement where you can connect without having to put your intellectual mind on all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just letting it flow.
Yeah, so I think that's letting it flow is such a good way to use the energy on Sunday, and just to rest up, because you're gonna need it for this week. Because Monday, April the 13th, we've got Mars newly in Aries conjuncting Neptune in Aries, and then we've got a more subtle transit of Venus in Taurus sextiling Jupiter in Cancer. So how you wield either your ego or your spiritual connection today is going to really show what the day is going to be like. So you can either wield your ego in terms of, you know, anger and aggression and, even hoarding and being miserly about resources, or some of the kind of more shadow aspects of Venus in Taurus, where we become very like selfish about what we have, and not feeling like there's enough, feeling lack. And the Mars conjunct Neptune can overinflate those feelings. We really see that in our world today. There's a lot of like a fear of what someone else has, and how that might infringe on what we have. So this is a day where you can see an overflow of that, or there is like this amazing spirituality that can come forward where we're really like spiritual warrior for what we believe, for like the sort of higher octaves of our experience, unconditional love, being empathetic to all human beings and being a protector of human beings. So it's a really good day to expand spiritually in terms of how we are caring, how we are allowing ourselves to be a good mother to ourselves, mother in our community, mother to the world. That's that Jupiter and Cancer energy. Conjunctions, they can create a super powered planet. So that's why with the Mars conjunct Neptune, our spirituality can either really empower our action, or our delusion and not having a sense of reality can really lead to aggressive action that is, at the very least, just not a true reflection of our best sides, and at the worst, dangerous in the world. Because when Mars is in Aries, like that is like war is happening.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, I guess another thing for this week is if you need motivation or drive for something, chances are it's there. Chances are you will have maybe an abundance of it, but making
Yes.
sure that it is being wielded in the right way, and used in a productive way, and maybe only used in a productive way with how much of it we have, and that none of that energy gets sort of utilized in a reactive way, as you were just saying. Again, very
Yeah,
important.
exactly. And that's just going to all come down to us just being consciously aware, being mindful, just taking that pause. I think that having, if there's a mantra for this week, it's like, I need to take a breath. It's
Yeah.
like taking that pause and really making sure that what you're doing is also your choice, that you're choosing that, and that you're in that conscious state when you're moving through, because there is this just impulsiveness. And so today, on Monday, the shadow side is impulsive escapism, or acting without clarity, or overindulgence or idealization, seeing things as you wish them to be instead of how they are, and acting from that place. But there's also this beautiful energy of sacred action, and like pouring energy into things that are really meaningful for us, that we really care about, and having that spiritual support available to us. I always, with this energy too, especially with Venus sextiling Jupiter, like ask for what you need, ask for the support you need from any benevolent forces in our entire universe, and really like, and be that force yourself, and you'll, create such an amazing vibration from this. It's not, this isn't a bad transit or a good transit. It's like this, it's just this, it's an incredible superpowered invitation that really could go either way based on if we're like paying attention or not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this whole week too, I'd just say, like, sure, there is a lot of energy for action, but like you might need to just rest through it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes. Yes. Especially if, I mean, of course, and this has come up a lot on the podcast, regardless of, because everyone's natal chart is different. And so some people may feel that they're more in their element with this energy because maybe they have a lot of Aries in their own natal chart. Some may feel more uncomfortable with the abundance of Aries because they don't have a lot. It could be vice versa, depending on everyone's, natal chart. But
yeah,
um, either way, there's a lot of it and everyone's feeling it. So it's
yeah,
better to just be aware of it, especially if you know that you are someone who naturally is very prone to, being impulsive or thinking later and acting first, or I should say reacting. It's, yeah, no one's saying you need to use the energy if you know you're not going to use it in you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point too of just like where does Aries fall in your chart, because
Yeah.
that will really tell you a lot about what's going to happen over this next week. If you've got Moon in Aries, if you've got 8th house Aries, if you've got 12th house Aries, like there could be some deep stuff coming up here, but I mean, it's all an invitation to grow, at the end of the day. So, but then again, also like, yeah, we have really been pulled back a lot this last, all through 2025. We couldn't get stuff going, get it started. So this is really exciting too. If you've got projects like, and there might just be exciting things coming in, exciting lucky surprises. The sextile is always sort of a subtle transit. It sort of happens under, it's not as, it's not like the trine or something. It's not maybe as readily noticeable. But there are like a lot of gifts and rewards that are possible as well. And that's really determined by sort of the seeds that we're sowing as well.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Tuesday, we move into definitely a bit more of a difficult placement. I would say it's Mercury in Pisces and it's sextiling Uranus in Taurus. So again, this is a subtle undercurrent, but because Mercury is at the last degree of Pisces, and we got really familiar, we over the last couple years, we're really getting to know the last degree of Pisces and the first degree of Aries, because we're like
Yes.
doing this whole
Back and forth.
this whole back and forth. And the anaretic degree, it is like a full moon degree of a sign. The last degree, it's very much like a release degree. It's the culmination. It's got amazing rewards, but also a big depth of shadow in it too. And so as Mercury is in that, we can feel emotional overwhelm. We can feel deep sadness, compassion overload. Like there's a lot of energy there. There is also a lot of access for creativity again, and love in general, just being able to access more unconditional love. And sometimes that's what moves us as well. But it's also sextiling Uranus and Taurus, and Uranus is the change maker. So there are things in our mind that need to change. And that's the hardest thing, is to create that space to change our minds. So if we can be open-minded today, especially around our beliefs and values and self-worth and things like that, and try and look for ways to infuse love, unconditional love into the tension, then it'll be much easier for us than if we are just allowing for anxiety or information overload and things like that, because that's also possible. Dreams will probably be really energized, throughout, probably Sunday through till today, to Tuesday. It'll be very, dreams and nightmares can be really
Either or, anything going on while we're sleeping.
exactly. But there's like breakthroughs in perception. So I would definitely pay attention to symbolism going on. And, there's some divine downloading going on. And it's not unfamiliar to us, though. As we've said, like we've been doing this dance between the last degree of Pisces and the first degree of Aries, which is really like the old ways of doing things and the new way that we want to cultivate things too for us, just because of like all the other shifts that have been going on. So, I think stay present in your body. Trust the nervous system and what it's telling you. If it's saying it's overloaded, like really listen to that and try and be more restful and peaceful. But also, like, when your mind is like really, it's like, what new truth needs to be acknowledged in that moment. That tension wants to create a breakthrough of some kind, and it's there. It's there. It's definitely accessible. That's the sextile energy, is like, there's something undercurrent here, and there's something really magical if you pay attention. So yeah, really important time to just trust the intuition too, and not try to rationalize too much with Mercury and Pisces. It really is feeling sensory based. And then Wednesday, Mercury enters Aries.
Yep. There we are.
Yeah. And it takes that is just such a different tone. We're going to feel such a shift from
I was
that.
gonna say, I mean, Pisces energy and Aries energy, as you said, we've been feeling the back and forth between it, but those are two very different energies. How might that shift feel, especially because it's Mercury that we're talking about?
Well, now we're going to be feeling feisty, fiery, sharp. We're going to like tell the truth and be honest. Like, it doesn't matter if it burns a bridge. Like, but also there's like, an amazing assertiveness of boundaries and things like that. So in Pisces, we are apt to forget our boundaries. And then Aries comes in and it's like, no, this is like, these are my needs, these are my desires, and I want to move forward on it. So, and especially because today also the moon conjuncts Mars, Mercury, and Neptune, all in Aries. So it's like, like there's so much bold energy coming through here. We are acting on our feelings. We are acting on our spiritual truths. And again, though, there's the shadow side to it, or we're acting on our ego if it's like we're unconscious and we're not checked in with what we need. So there is harsh words could be possible today, speaking from our wound rather than from clarity, emotional combustion, rash decisions. And so again, it's that take a moment to breathe and pause, because all emotions, even though our intuition really does come through sensory mode, a lot of feeling, we need to be clear of what's an emotion and what's an intuition. And if we feel really charged, the intuition feels more peaceful, more like a relief when we feel something that's really true. Whereas with our emotions, we can feel more anxiety, more tension. So it's really just being clear with ourselves about like, what is it we're actually feeling? And should I really act on this? Or is this a moment that I need to actually care for myself and do some real deep self-care?
Yeah, and it seems like I think you mentioned this not too long ago, but you were talking about how when you're dancing and you feel like you can really let the intuition flow. With so much fire energy, it might also be helpful if you're trying to tell the difference between if it's an intuitive thing that I'm feeling, if it's when you have sort of that like really charged energy, do something physical. Go for a run. This is fire energy. If it needs to get out of you, then let it channel it into something productive rather than reacting in a way. Because that could also be sort of your pause. If you go for a run, if you need to do some boxing, if you feel like you need to hit something, but maybe dance it out, something physical to help literally get that energy out, because once you're sort of resting afterwards, you might find there's a shift and you can sort of feel the clarity in that.
Absolutely. That's such good advice, because that is really what Aries needs. I mean, it needs an expression for so much energy.
Yeah.
It's not something that can just be sitting around, and it needs healthy competition. It needs, like you said, like martial arts, sports, things like that. A great way to just channel it, because the energy does need to move.
Yeah.
and it can either sort of bring us down through anxiety, or we can go out and like kind of shed some of that energy and come to a new like alignment inside. 100%. Yeah. And we're really going to need that sort of embodiment and physical practice too on Thursday, because the sun is going to conjunct Chiron in Aries, and this is happening at Aries, the 27th degree. And, you know, Chiron went into Aries in April of 2018, and it's going to exit in June of 2026, but it's going to do like that forward retrograde motion, you know, so it's not officially going to enter into Taurus full time till May 2027, but from June to September 2026 we're going to get a taste of it shifting. So this is like, you know, this has been such a huge moment for us in really discovering what our true identity is. I mean, I moved back to England during this time. I've been living in New York for, you know, decades, and since I was a little girl, and I moved back to England, and my whole identity shifted just from the energy shifts that I went through from moving back to the UK and being on my ancestral lands and things like that, and just like how that shifted me in my own spiritual growth. And I think a lot of us have been having identity shifts, and we've definitely seen it in the collective too, like these massive identity shifts going on. And that's really what Chiron and Aries is all about. It's like, I have the right to be who I am, and who is that? And so now we're coming to the end of that journey, and the sun naturally is the I am. And so when it is connecting with Chiron and Aries that says I have the right to be who I am, it's basically creating a super powered moment for us, where if we can really radiate light into the unhealed parts of us, into the parts of us that we have felt separation from. And the interesting, the Sabian symbol for this degree is, through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained. So it's almost talking about like when we use our own inner alchemy, and we use our own inner magic, you know, when we use intention, when we focus the mind, when we align our beliefs and our actions, we can make magic. Things that felt like we could never have in our life, they do come true. You know, things come together. So this is the point here. It's all about, you know, something that felt out of reach, something that you know, you felt might have been lost to you, you know, or the moment has passed. You know, I'm in my 40s, and it's like, as we get older, you can be like, oh, the moment's passed for like me writing a book or doing something creative or whatever. And it's like, this is the moment where it's like, no, the moment hasn't passed. Like, it's based on whatever your inner alchemy is. So if you want that, you can make it happen. And so there's a deep energy here to look at the wound, and that is around who we are, our sense of identity, and giving and the permission to be who we are, and create. And then there's the energy available to make magic around not only healing that wound, but transforming yourself into like a totally regenerated new version of yourself too. So the transformation is really high in this moment, the transformation of identity.
And
does that make sense?
it makes complete sense. I was just gonna say, if someone maybe wasn't as aware of that on this day, maybe someone didn't have that already in the back of their mind, could there be something that, I almost want to say, like, triggers that wound where they then fall into that reflection of, well, something just brought that up, or just something maybe external around them, if they aren't already internally on this day reflecting on that. Is that also a possibility?
Well, I think that everybody's experience will really show them where that is. So let's say it's like, it's whatever you're feeling driven to do, you know, like, it's like, these are the moments where you really want to pursue a career in a certain place, right? But you are too afraid to make the jump, and then all of a sudden you lose your job,
Mhm.
or you go through a breakup, or your landlord says, I need you to move in 2 months, or something like that. And there is a crisis that happens that triggers our deeper wounds around value and worth and our right to exist and our right to be who we are. And now we get to rebuild, but using this energy, using the energy of this transit, it's like we get to rebuild something that we might have brushed under the rug before.
Mhm.
We get to now revisit it. We get to use the breakdown as an opportunity to create from a deeper sense of who we are and what we really desire and want.
Mhm.
So there is a caveat to this energy where there is getting stuck looking at what's missing rather than in my mind I'm thinking of the tarot card, the Four of Cups, is it, where it's like three of them are
Oh,
upright.
is that the one where like their back is turned to the
The
cups
cups
and
are
they're
still
looking at which
standing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And
I think
then
so.
and then there's the hyperfixation on what's gone wrong and what's
Mhm.
lost, and not that there are opportunities still. There's no focus on that. So this is about, yes, there is going to be loss and grief that we're going to experience, and that may be triggered through different life events that we go through, or global events, but it's our job in this moment to use our imagination, to not give up hope of what we can create, and to not give up the idea that we can be geniuses at any moment in time,
Mhm.
and that there's no expiration date on that. And actually, the older that you get, the more access to inner genius you have because of life experience too. We often think that those things don't go hand in hand, that you have it all in your youth, and you don't. There's like never a wrong time to align yourself with your wants and desires. So I think this day is really probably the best day for writing intentions and getting clear. And it could be that you're getting clear about what you don't want too, things that can no longer move forward in your life, behaviors, relationships, whatever, so that you can align with a better vision and grow. So it might be a little bit of both. It might be a little bit of like realizing, okay, what do I need to actually let go of here?
Mhm.
Um, and then, you're not broken, you're becoming. And
Mhm.
that's, I think, the biggest key of this is like, yes, there's so many terrible moments that we as humans can go through,
Yeah.
like any human has gone through a litany of really difficult moments, and it can feel like, oh, I'm just becoming more and more broken. But we're actually we actually have this opportunity to open our hearts more and more and more every time, and become more of what, um, you know the best version of ourselves, really, through these experiences. And it's just, how are we working with the energy?
And it feels like it's perfect timing because literally the very next day, I believe, is that Aries new moon. So it feels like it's sort of if this is sort of the realization that that next day, that new moon energy is sort of the end. I'm putting my foot down and I am establishing myself and giving myself permission to have drive for the things that do align with who I am.
Yes, exactly. And this new moon is at the 28th degree of Aries. So it's the very next degree. And it's interesting because the Sabian symbol, I like to look at the Sabian symbols, and I also like a book called Inside Degrees by Elias Lonsdale. And they're both explanations of the degrees, but it's nice to kind of have a mixed bag of how, people have channeled what the energy is. So this, in the Sabian tradition, this degree is called a large disappointed audience.
Hmm.
Uh, But in the inside degrees, this degree is called a wreath of laurel placed on the head of an old man. So there's two sides to this new moon. One is that it really is about forging your own way, whether or not everybody agrees with you or not. It's like, going your own way might create disappointment in people around you when you're choosing yourself, or when you're choosing to embody like a deeper spiritual truth for yourself. It might go against the grain, and it might create disappointment in others. And that's maybe sometimes a part of being strongly aligned with a deeper sense of authenticity. Authenticity in someone is very hard for most people, because if you show up that way, it requires that other people meet you there. And if they're not willing to, it's very uncomfortable. So that's one side of it. And it's like, we have to ask ourselves at this new moon, like, how much of my disappointment that I experience about myself really comes through the expectations of others? Is that voice in my head that's, negative Nelly me, or is it someone else's expectations that I'm weighing my life up against? So very important here is kind of dissecting whose voice is who. And then, evoking the inside degree of, a wreath of laurel placed on the head of an old man. This is the image of actually like, honor and dignity, and it's like a symbol of placing this laurel on someone who's probably already failed and succeeded in life, but there's dignity and appreciation. And the explanation really evokes that something higher is watching, and something higher is seeing like you become who you're meant to become. And can you tap into that appreciation for self, pride in oneself, and appreciation for oneself, even if the audience isn't like clapping you along and necessarily like on the same page as you at the moment, so yeah, like I think sorry, I'm just looking at my notes.
You're good. It does seem like, again, I feel like it's one of my favorite things when it's apparent in astrology, especially for a week, whenever there's a story that the energy is telling, especially when a lot of the transits seem to connect. And it does seem like a lot of the transits this week do seem to connect. And it feels like a lot of that Aries energy, while it can be overwhelming, especially in the beginning of the week, because it is sort of towards the end of the Aries energy, and we have that transit with Chiron, and we have that new moon energy. It feels like sort of the culmination of coming to our own conclusions about who we are, who we want to be, and sort of embracing the transformative energy of Pluto in Aquarius, which is super far away and super big picture, but in a personal way, sort of letting that if it goes against the grain, or if it goes against the people around me, or if I have to lose people who don't feel comfortable around my authentic self to be my authentic self, so be it. It's sort of embracing that, as you said before, Aries energy, where this is my boundary. I'm setting it now, and I'm sort of coming out of the wishy-washy, mutable Pisces energy that may feel uncomfortable doing that.
Yes. And also that sometimes the gift is in the failure, it's like sometimes that is actually what creates better success in the future. And so not letting ourselves be crushed by any external failures, seeing the seed of like growth in what we're experiencing. And this is just such an amazing time to have a brave new beginning, regardless of the failures that have come before. Try again, and keep your vision hopeful, and keep your vision like focused very strongly on what it is that you want to grow, and make sure that that's just really authentic to you. If it's truly authentic to your spiritual purpose, there's no way that it can't come into fruition for you. And speaking to the Pluto too, the very next day after the new moon, Mercury is going to sextile Pluto. So all of this time, maybe there's like the tension of the new moon begins this like, oh, I've just had like a total transformation, an excavation in my mind. And now I can see the depth of things that I couldn't see before. So there's like just a soul truth that's coming out of this moment as well. So yeah, I think, really just letting yourself be as truthful to yourself as possible. And even though there will be that energy to act, you may need to kind of act in service to your spiritual rituals, your embodiment rituals, meditation this week, because it's like you're a newborn baby, and that newborn baby needs a lot of, you're being reborn. That's exciting, but you're still kind of vulnerable in that, and you still need that care. And Jupiter is still in Cancer, providing that kind of like, okay, let me be a really good parent to myself throughout this, and protect myself in a really loving way.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of in case we haven't noticed everyone at the same time. It's a lot of fire this week. And in terms of the energetic pacing, there isn't any retrogrades. There is not a lot that's sort of holding us back. So how might that feel?
It's high stakes this week.
Yeah. Okay, good.
It's high stakes. There's massive potential for transformation, emotional cleansing, soul-led action. You might be really surprised by the authentic self that comes through, especially if you allow for surrender and for some of that emotional rawness. If you acknowledge these things and you kind of drop the pretense and the performance, some really incredible, you just might surprise yourself as to like who's really this brave being that really inhabits your body. I think it's so important to stay present, breathe, take those extra moments, be honest. This is like not the time to mince words this week, but you can also be kind in your honesty. You can be compassionate in your honesty, and grounding. And then, as you said, the exercise, so important, just physical body connection. Because it's really intense, and you want to be forged in the fire, not fried.
Yeah, we want to regulate the fire, regulating a nice flame. We don't need to scorch ourselves. Like we don't need to. Yeah, we want to make sure we don't burn we don't want to make sure we burn out. I think that with that shift from Pisces to Aries, again, these are two very different signs and very different energies. So I think especially just with that transition, we want to make sure that we are grounded, as you said, in our bodies, and just all on top of it, I guess I would say, just making sure that everything's regulated and that we don't overdo it, especially this week.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you had to choose any phrase or any 3 words for the words of the week, what would you choose?
Yeah, I mean, they come through quite easily because it's just such an intense week. I would say confrontation. You can't heal what you don't face. So that's definitely a part of it. Crisis. And that's like, like a breakdown typically happens before a breakthrough. And collapse is often needed to build a stronger foundation and become more authentic. And then initiation, because something is beginning here. And it's soul inspired. It's totally different maybe than what you imagined, or it's something that you never imagined could come to fruition, and there's energy here for it to happen. So yeah, it's a really wonderful mix. I'm like, does that sound quite tough? Confrontation, crisis, and initiation?
No, but look, I think it is. I think with the Aries being ruled by Mars and the very the warlike strong quality of Mars, I think that can be used for for good or bad. I think that it can be, it just depends on how you wield it. And I think that knowing that we have that energy will help us to sort of wield it in a positive way, in a productive way, where we can sort of approach it from that, ready to use that Aries energy and that drive for just letting ourselves dive right into whatever needs to be, whatever needs to be reborn or whatever needs to be transformed, and not sort of shying away from that just because it might feel uncomfortable with whatever maybe wound Chiron highlights. So I think those are perfect words to have in the back of our the back of our heads for this week. It feels like that's the week.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well,
big week.
It's a big week. We've got a lot going on. I'm going to do a very quick astrological rundown of all the lovely astrological information that you've given us, Rebecca. If I miss anything, or if you want to add anything in, feel free to just jump right in. But for anyone else that might want to take some notes, here is the rundown for this week. So like Rebecca said, this week is all about initiation, individuality. Last year, 2025, there may have felt like it was delay after delay, but right now everything is moving forward. There are no retrograde planets, which means we need to check ourselves. We need to be our own points of reflection. We need to ask ourselves what we're reviewing. We need to think before we leap, because Aries is going to want to just move. But we're definitely feeling the heat. It's a 1 year in numerology, so it's great for getting the ball rolling for some projects. It's a very individually minded year, which means that there could be some themes of selfishness for some. So try to collaborate as much as you can, especially with so much energy, Aries energy. Mars recently having entered Aries, we are feeling that, and in its best, it is spirit in motion. But you have to take responsibility for yourself. So that's a good thing to just keep in the back of your mind. It's not a week to overdo it with any substances, so don't lean into escapism habits. It can lead to very damaging results, or it could be harmful. So just be conscious of not leaning into drugs, alcohol, any of those things. Even if it feels a bit overwhelming, it can lead to accidents. So just try and ground yourself, stay in your body, stay present, go out in nature if you have to. But starting on Sunday, April 12th, we're going to have the moon in Aquarius. And this is a great way to sort of start the week, detaching from any heavy emotions you might be feeling. It's a great day to reflect on your own individuality and uniqueness, how you relate to the collective and your own humanitarian side. It's really not that much going on this day. It's great for any creative things as well. So writing, singing, anything where you can sort of tap into the spirit or universe. Aquarius is very intuitive energy. So if you can sort of let the energy flow through you and rest up for the rest of the week, that's great. And then on Monday, April 13th, we're going to have Mars in Aries conjunct Neptune in Aries. We're also going to have Venus in Taurus sextile Jupiter in Cancer. So how you wield your ego or your spiritual connection on this day decides how that day will go. You can wield your ego with anger and aggression, the feeling of hoarding resources or being selfish over what you have, focusing on what you lack, rather than coming from a place of appreciation, being grateful. Or you can have an amazing energy of spirituality coming forward. You can become a sort of spiritual warrior for what you believe, and being compassionate and empathetic to all human beings, sort of embracing a protector energy. It can be a great day to even expand spiritually on how you show that you appreciate, that you're grateful, that you care, and sort of being a mother to yourselves and the people around you. And with the Mars and Aries conjunct Neptune in Aries, this can overinflate those feelings, especially of lacking things, or again, jealousy of what others have. But spirituality on this day can really empower our actions or our delusions. So, you can have that sort of fuel the compassion behind whatever you think or do on this day, but you could also have the delusion and the not having a grounded sense of reality lead to some aggressive action that can be harmful, or just not a true reflection of ourselves. So we want to make sure that we're coming from a place of gratitude on this day, and that we're making sure that we're embracing the sort of higher vibration of that energy. The shadow side, as Rebecca mentioned, for Monday is a sense of impulsiveness, overindulgence, seeing things for how you want them to be and not for how they are, and then acting on that. But on the bright side, this can be a day of sacred action, pouring energy into the meaningful things that we care about, and having spiritual support available to us, and being able to ask for support. It also could be a day of lucky or exciting surprises with this energy. So it might be a great day to move forward with things that may have felt like it was being delayed constantly. And then on Tuesday, April 14th, Mercury in Pisces is going to sextile Uranus in Taurus. And Mercury is at the very last degree of Pisces, which is a very powerful degree. It's the anaretic degree. It's like the full moon of the sign. It's a culmination, the high peak of energy. So it's deep. We can feel emotional overwhelm, a deep sadness, or a deep compassion. It's very creative. So there's a lot of access to intuition and love here. But Uranus is the change maker. So there may be some things in our mind that might need to change, certain thinking habits or routines, but we want to try our best to create the space to do that and try and be open minded around beliefs of worth, values, and look for ways to infuse love into any tensions that could come up on this day. Dreams also may be very energized or significant. So, for the whole beginning of this week, pay attention to any symbolism that you may notice around us because there could be breakthroughs happening. Trust your nervous system, stay grounded, and be present in your body as well. Then on Wednesday, April 15th, we're going to have Mercury entering Aries, and that is a very big shift. It's feisty, fiery, sharp, telling the blunt truth regardless of if it burns a bridge energy. It's great for assertiveness and setting boundaries, especially because in Pisces, we are more easily forgetting how to do that and feeling uncomfortable with that. But in Aries, it's the opposite. It's about knowing our needs, our desires, and boundaries with ourselves and other people. And then we're going to have the moon in Aries conjunct Mars, Mercury, and Neptune. So it's a lot of bold energy going on around our feelings and our spiritual truths. The shadow side of that is the potential to act from our ego. So if we aren't aware of that, we could speak from wounds and, say some harsh things and make rash decisions. So just take a breath and pause. That way we don't fall into any emotional overwhelm. You may feel really charged. So if you need to be physical, go for a run, exercise, go box, do boxing, just do something to get that energy out, do it. And then on Thursday, April 16th, the sun is going to be conjunct Chiron in Aries. And Chiron is the asteroid that's all about the wounded healer. So it can be a wound or a place that you can sort of focus on to heal a wound that you may have. And this is a very big moment for discovering what your true identity is. The sun is naturally the I am. And so here is all about embracing the energy of I have the right to be who I am. You can really radiate light into the unhealed parts of yourself and the part that you may feel separated from. I really loved, Rebecca, what you mentioned, that sentence, through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained, because this is where you may feel if something was out of reach before, something that you felt the moment has passed or it's been lost to you, you may find that you rediscover that the moment has not passed. And you want to look at the wound there that made you think otherwise and give yourself the permission to transform into who is your most authentic self. Allow that energy to sort of revitalize yourself and don't feel stuck on the sort of, I think it was the 5 of Cups energy of, focusing on all the things that didn't work in the past or all the failures, sort of trying to look in the bigger picture, find the gift in the failure so that you can look for success in the future. So it's sort of giving yourself more credit there for discovering your own inner genius and letting yourself focus on what feels the most authentic to you. It's like sort of realization energy. So it's a great day for writing intentions and finding clarity in what is right and what does not align with you. Because the next day, April 17th on Friday, is that new moon in Aries. And this is the last degree of Aries. We're all about releasing things and a fresh new start. And there are 2 sides to this new moon. You may find that you're forging your own way, regardless of if everyone else agrees with you. Choosing yourself and your inner truth might create disappointment with others, and just knowing that that's okay, especially if you're tapping into your own authenticity. And also because it is still touching on Chiron, which is that wounded healer. This could be a point that is a fresh start based on surrender and personal healing. So it's not one where it's just going to be handed to us. We do have to pay attention. Again, I love what you said, Rebecca, about it being sort of the energy of us being forged in fire. I'm still getting Targaryen imagery in my head. But again, if you aren't paying attention, you might be fried. So we don't want to burn out. We want to be brave and be bold for our new beginnings and stay hopeful and find the higher vibration energy in this. And then on Saturday, April 18th, we're going to have Mercury sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. And this is just leaning more into that transformational energy. So you can have the potential to see truths and the depth of things that maybe you previously were not able to. May need to act in service to your own spiritual rituals, or, meditation this week is going to be very important. But it is sort of like newborn baby energy. So we want to make sure that after all of this very intense energy, we're regulating our body systems, that we feel grounded, that we feel healthy, and we feel we feel stable. I think especially is the key thing here. But that is this week. Do you want to add anything in?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's basically like Happy New Year this week.
Seriously.
There's fireworks, there's wonder, but the dog's under the bed,
and there's 6 other things happening all at once.
Yeah, but Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah.
It's a new energy year, so it is a fresh start, and best of luck to you,
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. And Rebecca, I had such a blast speaking to you about this powerhouse of a week. Where can people find you on social media or on a website?
Yeah, at Rebecca Conran on Instagram, although I'm not typically on there too much. YouTube or my website, rebeccaconran.com. Yeah, and you can find everything from my website, so that'll lead you everywhere that you need to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me this week, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.